This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. The convicted sex abuser and trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell will spend the next 20 years in federal prison. A judge handing down that sentence this Tuesday, which means the 60-year-old could spend much of the rest of her life behind bars for acting as Epstein's enabler. 20 years is less than the 30 to 55 years federal prosecutors had asked for her role in Jeffrey Epstein's sexual abuse of young girls over the course of a decade. Maxwell was key to Epstein's entire operation of sexually abusing teenage girls over a 10-year period. If the conviction is upheld, Maxwell, with time potentially deducted for good behavior and credit for the 2 years she has spent in jail, could leave prison in her late 70s. FEMA awards the USVI $50 million in funding to restore the Charlotte Kimmelman Cancer Institute in St. Thomas. The VI Office of Disaster Recovery says the funding comes after extensive negotiations with FEMA. The funding will allow them to begin demolition and reconstruction. The facility was forced to close back in 2017 after Hurricanes Irma and Maria caused irreparable damage to critical equipment and systems, leaving a gap in medical care that to date has not been filled. Those with the Office of Disaster Recovery say before the storms, the medical center administered cancer treatments to the territory's residents as well as visitors from other Eastern Caribbean islands. They're now soliciting bids until July 18th for demolition, and architects are finalizing design plans for the facility, which is expected to be completed by this September. The design plans, that is. The goal is to rebuild a resilient, state-of-the-art cancer care facility in St. Thomas. The Virgin Islands Fire and Emergency Medical Services have updated its fleet. It has added 2 new emergency response vehicles to its fleet. The new apparatuses are known as pumpers and are critical pieces of firefighting equipment. They're usually the first trucks to arrive on a fire scene and are used to pump water to fire hoses to fight fires. The new pumpers were purchased with local funds appropriated by the 34th legislature, and one will be assigned to each district. These additions are just part of the plan to update and expand the agency's fleet. As we're now just months away from a new school year, VI Governor Albert Bryan Jr. has accepted the resignation of Education Commissioner Raquel Berry Benjamin. Her resignation is effective immediately. And the governor has named Assistant Commissioner of Education Victor Somme as acting commissioner until the governor nominates a permanent one. The governor did not indicate a reason for her resignation, but it comes after recent protests territory-wide to raise awareness to what organizers said were major issues affecting learning in schools. In a statement on Tuesday, Bryan said, "I want to thank Commissioner Berry Benjamin for her work in this administration, and particularly for her efforts to keep the students learning during the extreme difficulties brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic and the task of creating a virtual learning system almost overnight. I have confidence in Mr. Somme's ability to bring us into the successful start of school in just a few months away, and I've asked the Education Department leadership with looking ahead to the post-pandemic landscape that has changed school systems across the nation." Again, Governor Bryan did not say exactly what the reasoning was behind the resignation. COVID-19 cases remain steady territory-wide, although we are seeing a bit of a spike on all islands since Monday. Health officials are currently tracking 210 active COVID cases territory-wide, with 157 on St. Croix, 48 on St. Thomas, and 5 currently on St. John. And with more than 1 million Americans now lost to COVID-19, ripple effects of grief are spreading throughout the nation. As the toll rises, so do the number of bereaved family members, pain that could linger for generations. Elise Preston speaks with The New Yorker, grappling with devastating loss both at work and at home.
For Eileen Jimenez, the past 2 years have brought heartbreak after heartbreak.
They were like one after the other. You know what I mean? Like you didn't even have a break to kind of grieve one before you're grieving the next.
COVID-19 took 2 of her uncles and 4 of her close friends.
I lost a very good college friend that I've known for many years, and I just couldn't believe it, right? She just had a baby like 2 years ago.
The pandemic also left gaping holes in her work at Catholic Guardian Services, where she helps find permanent homes for children in foster care. 8 of the foster mothers she works with died of COVID, leaving behind the children in their care.
My heart broke for them, and particularly one that was being adopted, and that was completely disrupted.
More than 1 million Americans have now died of COVID-19. Research at Penn State University shows for each of those deaths, at least 9 family members are left behind as survivors.
Our results would imply that with over 1 million individuals who died of COVID-19, that over 9 million people had lost a parent, sibling, spouse, child, or grandparent in the U.S.
Ashton Verdery helped lead the study.
I think that it's going to be 50 or 60 years before a large proportion of the population doesn't remember that their grandparent passed away in this acute mortality shock that influenced the country.
Ripples of grief that will change American families long after the pandemic loosens its grip.
The Supreme Court's ruling overturning Roe v. Wade has left many rattled in the country, but the most immediate and dramatic impact has been in states where abortion was banned in just a matter of hours. In one of those states, Louisiana, doors which closed on Friday are temporarily open again after a state court ruling, and clinics there are wasting no time in helping patients. Stephanie Goss reports.
Just days after that landmark Supreme Court decision, many states across the country still coping with the aftermath, and some seeking abortion facing uncertainty. Abortion is now illegal in 7 states, and at least a dozen more are expected to ban or restrict the procedure in the weeks ahead. In both Louisiana and Utah, judges have issued temporary restraining orders, preventing the state's abortion bans from going into effect. Abortion rights groups are suing the state of Louisiana, arguing the ban violates the state's constitution.
All of this is a bit of whiplash, though, right? For you and also for your patients, isn't it?
We've gone from the lowest of the lows to a temporary high, and I would only say to our patients it's worth it.
But in most of the states where those bans are in effect, women who want an abortion will have to cross state lines to get one, to the 20 states where abortion remains legal. Something the group Texas Right to Life is hoping they can stop by putting social programs in place to help.
We really want to pay attention to making sure we're protecting pregnant students and pregnant workers.
Abortion rights supporters say that is not good enough. Vice President Kamala Harris vowing the administration will fight to make sure abortions remain available.
We will do everything within our power to ensure that women have access to the medication they need, which has been, by the way, FDA approved, and that they will have freedom of travel.
And as we reported, VI Governor Albert Bryan Jr. issued a statement vowing to veto any legislation affecting the reproductive rights of women here in the USVI. He called the Supreme Court's ruling disappointing and concerning, and said a woman's right to choose will remain safe and legal in the Virgin Islands. And as governor, I vow to veto any legislation remotely proposing to make more difficult a woman's right to make choices concerning her reproductive health. Airlines canceled more than 740 flights on Monday. It comes after a chaotic travel weekend, which saw more than 1,500 domestic flight cancellations. Delta Airlines says it's due to higher than anticipated worker absences, bad weather, and air traffic control restraints. The most impacted airports have been Delta's hubs in Atlanta and Newark. Airlines are dealing with a pilot shortage, too, after offering buyouts and early retirement benefits to try to trim staff during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic. That happened despite a bailout worth $54 billion from the federal government. This coming weekend marks the 4th of July holiday, which typically sees a spike in air travel. Meantime, Americans will have to dig even deeper into their pockets to celebrate this 4th of July. The American Farm Bureau Federation released a new survey Monday, which found the Independence Day cookouts going to cost Americans about 17% more than on average than it did a year ago. They report feeding 10 guests on average will cost nearly $70 this year, an increase of about $10 from 2021. The biggest price jumps come from beef products. 2 pounds of beef can cost 36% more. Chicken, lemonade, and potato salad have also seen an incline in prices. Experts blame inflation, supply chain issues, and the war on Ukraine for the increased costs. But not everything costs more. Apparently, the prices for potato chips, cheese, and strawberries have actually dipped a bit.